January 1970. The crib can go over here, the changing table over there. Over the noisy television, exclamation of "The devil made me do it" by Geraldine of the Flip Wilson Show, my parents were pointing to various spots in our wood-paneled den. It was being transformed into a future nursery right before my very eyes. The announcement followed, "There's going to be a baby here this summer." My two younger sisters began to jump around like monkeys escaped from the zoo. I did not jump. With all the controlled measure I could manage in my 12-year-old voice, I simply asked, "Are you going to adopt?" At this point, I began to plead with God in my head, imploring him in prayer for my mother to answer, "Yes, we are adopting." My mother looked at me straight in the eye and answered back in equally measured tones, "No, I'm having a baby." The monkeys continued to jump as if they had been part of the decision-making process. Clarity swept over me like a tidal wave. 2 weeks prior, the 4-volume set of the Life Cycle Library had mysteriously appeared on my bed. Being a voracious reader, I finished the entire set over Christmas break. Suddenly, acquired knowledge raced into my consciousness. If this was not an adoption, according to Volume 3 of the Life Cycle Library, my mother had, dear God, no sex. Until that very moment, I had the certainty that my mother was an asexual being. With one sentence, she emphatically became a sexual being. My mother was a sexual being. What if my friends found out? There was also the indelicate matter of her advanced maternal age. She was 29 years old. Later that night, the sister monkeys settled down. I was still awake in my bed. In the darkness of my room, I began to see how this whole, in my opinion, ill-advised thing had happened. Now the times that we were sent outside to play and the sound of the door locking behind us made sense. What about those times we were dropped off at the Dollar Theater and our parents had to rush home to put ice cream in the freezer? There was no ice cream. Evidently, the two of them had been in on this whole thing together all along. The reason these thoughts solidified in my mind is because my mother never really covered human sexuality with me. She left it to the Life Cycle Library to fill in not only the gory details, but all the correct terminology. September 1979. My mother and I sat across from each other at the kitchen table the morning after my 21st birthday. An enormous 1/3 carat diamond engagement ring graced my left hand. Mama shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "Do you think we should talk about the birds and the bees?" she hesitantly inquired. "Sure," I answered. "What do you want to know?" We both laughed. Without words, my mother acknowledged that I was becoming a sexual being. February 2009. My daughter was engaged. As we sat across from each other at the kitchen table, neither of us shifted uncomfortably. I did not inquire if she needed a refresher course on the birds and the bees. There was no real need to. I did not pass down the Life Cycle Library. Instead, a colorful and cartoon illustrated of "Where Did I Come From" was read to her. We talked openly about conception. She knew the gory details and the correct terms for body parts. After she finished high school, I adhered to the ignorance is bliss mode of communication. She made adult decisions. She did not ask me to either accept or condone them. She was not the naive 21-year-old woman I had been. She was a 28-year-old college graduate. I did not know, nor did I want to know, when she became a sexual being. A year after she married, she became pregnant with my first grandchild. I thought it was safe to assume at that point she had figured it out. January 2016, my daughter and I both squirmed in our seats across from each other at the kitchen table. I was newly divorced after nearly 37 years of marriage. I was about to go on my first date. We need to have a talk, Mother. My daughter spoke in carefully measured tones. I simply looked at her. Then a realization hit me. My daughter believed that I was an asexual being. And why wouldn't she think that? I had not produced a late-in-life baby. Her father, a career Army aviator, was absent a lot. We had rarely been openly affectionate with each other. She and her brother were not the free-range kind of kids my sisters and I had been. They had never been locked out of the house or dropped off at a dollar theater. Our ice cream was never in danger of melting. Mother, are you listening to me? You have to protect yourself. Guys are just waiting to take advantage of an unsuspecting woman like you. Whoa, wait a minute. I am a 57-year-old woman. Until recently, I was faithfully married for the entirety of my adult life. I am a devoted mother to my children, a delightful gaga to my grandsons, yet a disposable wife to my husband. In the last several years, I've been through levels of hell I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. I've survived losing my home, my financial security, and my husband to another woman. And I miss my home. That night I had a first date, a date with a man. Apparently I still have thoughts and feelings and emotions. It was not that guy. It would definitely not be on a first date. My hope was to find a man who valued me, loved me, and respected me. After all, contrary to the deeply held belief by my children, I am not dead. Mama, this mama, is a sexual being. Boom, mic drop.